Wondering what to write about, trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist, am I worth anything or just discount? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know.
Spending time all alone, sending my dreaming of a better home while focused on trying to hone this craft, witchcraft. I hope the Brujas let this last.
I don't know if you heard this, baby.
That was a great sounds of Watson with Outside on WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Prestige, with my partner in crime, Long Island Rays, Elm City May, Easy Bluez is in the building. Easy Bluez, you're better with introductions more than me. Who do we have with us today on Behind the Brand?
It is a perfect Friday when you can wake up in the land of pretend, when you can jump into the being of another, when you can portray stories that are there for other people. One of the most incredible things about this show is we love to tell those stories. We love to embrace the weird and just tell incredible stories. So for here and for today, back when you were a kid and you were standing in front of your mirror and you were saying line for line, The Princess Bride or Belly, pick one, you know, you knew who you were. You knew you were in that moment. You knew you were Nas coming up, or you knew you were the Dread Pirate Roberts. Our imagination is one of the most key things possible. And when we stop playing, we stop being human beings. And it is the actors that fully appreciate and show us that we can continue to play. We don't need a Tonka truck, although Tonka trucks were amazing. So today we have an actor, a director, a podcaster. This dude even is one of the top heads of the film festival for Bridgeport. Put your hands together, not if you're driving. If you're driving, please keep your hands at 10 and 2 because we don't need any accidents. But mentally, throw your hands together for the amazing, the incredible Jason Coombs. What's going on, brother? Welcome, benvenue.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on the show today. What a great introduction.
Well, I try. It is what it is. Sometimes you get a little bit of stuck and you just got to continue to go with the flow. I treat everything like freeform jazz. So it kind of works out well for me. But, to be honest and all that, you were someone who was actually referred to us by our amazing network of weirdos, wackos, and awesomeness. All because you, sir, are an entertainer in the fullest form of every aspect of it. Now, was this, the calling of your life, or was this something you stumbled into? What was your origin story, sir? Tell us your origin story.
Yeah.
Who killed your Uncle Ben?
It's not that dramatic. I just spent a lot of time alone as a kid, as a latchkey kid, early 90s. So I was raised on a lot of TV, a lot of HBO. So I just remember it was kind of three things, right? I remember watching Will Smith in Fresh Prince, Whitney Houston in The Bodyguard, and then the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Those three things were the culmination of oh my gosh, I love these things, and people get to be on TV and pretending, and you get to be in this fantastical world. Can I do that? Oh, I think I can. And that kind of was the culmination. And ever since I was 6, I was I want to be an actor. I want to be on TV, those kids, Macaulay Culkin. I just wanted to be an entertainer. It's the only thing I've ever wanted to be since I was a kid.
Now, I have to say, first of all, that's an awesome story, and I love that those are the three. It's awesome. Absolutely incredible, makes complete cultural sense. It's awesome. And then, Whitney Houston, awesome. Bodyguard, hi. And then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And then all of a sudden Corey Feldman winds up showing up for no apparent reason, in your thing, which is great. I mean, and anyone who can say, I wanted to be an actor because of something Corey Feldman did, that's all it is there for sure. But
for sure.
As you continue to evolve and grow and do all of these amazing things, what's your What's your white whale? Like, what's the one role that if you could seriously like lose a limb to play, what is that role and why is it so darn important to you?
Oh, that's a great question that I've never been asked before. I think it would probably be, I don't think it's a role. I think it's more of a
Mhm.
collaboration, right? I would give a limb to work with Jordan Peele on
Mhm.
some kind of horror adjacent film where I got to be either the lead. I mean, I would take the lead, but I would also take, a supporting role in something that he wrote and produced and directed because I think he's an absolute genius and I'm obsessed with his work. And I have a lot of respect for him, clearly, but I respect him because he comes from like a comedy background and he's made like his way into horror as well, which is two of my favorite kind of genres. So I don't think I don't have a role, but definitely a person I would love to collaborate with.
No, that's awesome. And actually, I mean, you're in that path. You're walking that walk. You've actually been part of one of the most incredible, I'll say, TikTok phenomenons. Although it was TikTok phenomenon by adjacent. Being in the SNL digital skit cuffing season. I think is one of the coolest things. When I got your bio, that was the first thing like I text Prestige about. I was like, "Yo, he's in a video with SZA," and
Yeah.
it's that video that for the longest time, especially during the winter to fall when you were scrolling through the TikTok, every other aspect, and then you had like all these incredible, jacked dudes being all sorts of mad. You're like, that's not what they mean. So how did you wind up, being on set with SZA, like, and all of these incredible female comedic actresses?
Yeah, it was wild because I over the pandemic I had like this dream that I was like on SNL, which was like random because of course everyone like watches SNL and it would be such an honor to be like the host of SNL one day. But I had this dream that was like backstage and I can remember that dream so vividly like in 2020. And then I was working on this docu-series and it was like our final week of production on it and it was really stressful and like really hectic. And I got this email, this random email was like SNL casting, are you interested? Text this number. And I looked at it and I was like, whatever. No, I don't have time for that. That sounds like a scam. And I kept working on this project. And then something in my back of my head was like, you should just look at the email. So I opened up the email and it was still kind of sketchy. It was like, text this number. But I was like, let me do my research, right? So I researched the casting director, and it was from the casting director's assistant, and it was a it was a legit casting director. So I was like, okay, the texting part was still a little sketchy, but I was like, let me just see what's up with this. I couldn't get it out of my head. So I texted the person, and they were like, can you send some pictures of yourself? And I guess, if I was like a female, I probably
Mhm.
would be a little more hesitant, but I was like, I can send a couple pictures, like whatever. So I did, and they were like, well, we're looking for like cuddly teddy bears to hang out with the cast in a skit, and I was like, okay. And they were like, are you available tomorrow? Can you get a COVID test like right away? And then I was like, seems still seems a little weird, but I'm gonna go for
Mhm.
it. So I texted my job, and my boss is super super lenient. He was like, we're almost at the end of this thing, like go do it. So I ended up going to New York the next morning at what 5 o'clock in the morning. Still thought it was a scam because it wasn't at the main studios. It was like by the West Side Highway, and I was like walking like 5 o'clock in the morning, like okay, like I might get murdered. This might be a scam, but when I finally got to the lobby, it was like okay, SNL digital skits, and it was I signed in official paperwork and everything. And I was like, okay. So I guess like, it kind of fell into my lap where someone was like
Mhm.
looking for my type, which was great. I didn't have to like submit or anything for it. But I was still kind of nervous because when I got there, they were like, oh, we have to teach you this like dance routine. And I was like, wait, I thought I was gonna be cuddling with the cast. I don't I don't dance. And they had what six of us bigger
Mhm.
guys, and they were like, okay, fitting and then choreography go, and we have to learn like all this choreography. And then I found out I was like going to be behind SZA. It just kept getting more and more heightened. I was like, I can't believe you're going to make me dance behind one of the biggest stars in the world. Like I'm not a dancer. But they faked it. They cleaned it up really good. They like did some cool shots to hide my lack of dance.
So humble. I've seen that video several hundred times, and you dance divinely, sir. You dance divinely.
Thank you.
Well, that what happens when you work with professionals, they know what they're doing. So
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And it was such a great time.
And what I love, and I hope everyone who's listening right now, they're pull over to the side of the road and take out a pen and a piece of paper. Sometimes those emails and those text messages can amount to something, but you have to do that research first. And also, maybe you carry something heavy in your pocket just in case you're walking down the West Side Highway and that
Yeah,
van does pull up. We want to be 100% careful. But
exactly,
you took a
exactly.
chance, you took a risk, and that is very much of the entertainment industry. It's one of the most incredible things about being an actor or being an entertainer is you have to be able to take those risks, take those roles that, some people would be afraid of. And those are more people who are afraid of those roles. Maybe that means that role is meteor, and that's the stuff that's going to get you the accolades that are necessary. What I love to say is I look at all art. I want to try to be like Al Pacino, not as phenomenal of an actor that he is, or phenomenal as an artist as he is. But I want to do these big budget stuff to finance me going and doing Shakespeare in the Park for free. So it's these incredible
100%.
opportunities. So when do you think, what is your big budget aspect that allows you to do your Shakespeare in the Park?
Oh, like a project that I want to get, I want to produce like myself. Or
Yeah. Like what's the one that we're putting all the little pennies and shackles together and getting for? What is your Clerks? What is your Meta Ian? What is that aspect for you?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I love horror, and I've been writing this horror script called The Red Ties, which is, it's about this couple who is on a romantic little getaway, and they end up being accosted by a cult. So that's kind of like the script I've been working on. I've done a bunch of readings for it. I've pitched it to a couple of producers here and there. I'm just waiting for someone to give the green light, and I think there's room for it to have sequels and to become a franchise. So I guess I'm kind of putting like all my eggs in that basket right now, which is, probably not the best idea, but for now it is what it is, and that's what I'm like spearheading, telling people about, trying to get people
Mhm.
excited about it.
Well, and that's one of the things, especially in the industry of entertainment.
Mhm.
You're constantly told, make sure you get a good day job. Make sure you do this type of aspect. So we are kind of brought up in the culture of not putting all the eggs in the basket. But if we really pay attention to all of those success stories that really cracked out of the park, it was those that didn't have the backup plan. It was those that were able to invest 100% into that dream, no matter how delusional it did sound. And not saying that your dream is delusional at all, because I'm actually really digging it, and that's dope. And if you need some soundtrack work, I know some people.
Yes,
But
thank you.
I'm just being real. That's what we do
I
here.
love that.
Um,
Hey, it's organic connection right there. Come on.
exactly. That's actually my hip hop name. Um, sorry.
I love that. It's so
Uh, I did say that I was a fool. I appreciate it. I fully own my fullness. But
organic
it
connection
is
on the
this,
ones and twos.
always, yes, exactly. See, there we go. Um, you know, while you're going forward and you are doing this, you are doing readings on it, you're doing those type of aspects. Now, there's a whole bunch of people that are listening right now that have no idea what a reading is. There's a whole bunch of people that are listening right now that have no idea what those steps are. So let's pull the curtain back. Let's show them, the dude that's actually running everything. It's just some old guy. There's no wizard. It's just some old guy pulling on some levels, speaking into a microphone. Um, you know, what are these steps that you're talking about? What is a reading? It's not like when
Yes.
you sit down and have your palms out and you get charged $700, right?
No, no, it's not that cool. No, but it's I teach a writing course here in Bridgeport every couple months, and the number one thing I always tell my students is writing is rewriting. So I spent a year just kind of working on this script, doing like I think 7 drafts of it when I was finally ready able to share with other people, because sharing something you wrote is kind of nerve-wracking, right? You're like, oh, people are gonna like this, or people are gonna find the jokes funny, or people are gonna think this is scary. So like, it took a while for me to be comfortable to do a reading on Zoom. So but what that means is I got a bunch of my actor friends. I gave out the parts based on who I thought would be best for the role for this reading, had someone read the stage directions, and then I also invited some people who were just writers and directors to just listen. And then we did it on Zoom, I think in maybe early 2021. And then it was like 3 hours. We read the script for 2 hours, and it was like an hour feedback where everyone just gave me, they gave me notes on what they thought worked, what they thought didn't work. The actors, they were reading it kind of for the first time out loud. So, what felt organically in their speech when they were speaking the lines, what felt real, what didn't feel real. And I just took all that feedback so I could do draft 8, 9, and 10. And then that took me all of last year, just kind of like, okay, I get tired. I put it away for a little bit and I go back to it like a month later. And I did another reading in person finally this past spring. That was kind of the same thing, getting, some actor buddies together. But it was different because, when you're on Zoom, there's always delays and there's lag. And, you're not really sure if all the jokes are landing because people have their mics on mute. But actually hearing it in like actual group in person was pretty phenomenal. And I got a lot of good feedback from there. And again, it was like, just like an hour after, people giving notes, people were taking notes during the reading, and they, gave me all this feedback, what they thought could make it better and what they thought, could be improved and what they really liked about it. And then I take all that information, I kind of sift it through and say, okay, what works for me, right? Because everyone has an opinion at the end of the day, but it's kind of like up to me to kind of sift through the ones that I think can mesh well with what I'm trying to do with my theme and my thesis with the script. Ooh, sorry. That's a long-winded answer.
It's true and it's real, and it's what people forget go into this process. It's what people forget when you hear big budget movies that cost this amount of money. It's not because people showed up and they do this type of aspect. Yes, the visual art aspect, all those type of things are going to cost, but it's also the hours upon hours that went into writing the script, went into editing the script, and for some pictures, there are, writers and editors still on set while it's happening because someone could have ad-libbed something that made so much more sense, so it's all of these different things. It's not a one and done type of thing. Acting is not actually the lazy man's sport. It is one of those things that you really do have to invest in and go back and reread, and to truly understand who your character is the key. Now, as you are writing, do you like go back to reading the hero's journey and just pick those different type of archetypes, or are you basing these characters off of people's or personalities in which you have already know or have come through? And if so, I give you full and total rights to make me beautiful.
To add
Making beautiful
DJ
on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven, myself, Prestige, and my partner in crime, Long Island Raised, Elm City made, EZ Bluez is in the building. We have the very intelligent Jason A. Coombs with us on Behind the Brand. Go right ahead, Jason, with that answer.
Yes. Thank you for that. I'm the kind of person where I think I heard from a writer friend of mine who writes books, that there's plotters, who are people who like sit down and plot and they write everything out, and then there's like pantsers, people who just write by the seat of their pants. And I'm definitely a plotter. Like I will spend literally months kind of outlining my characters. Like I'll write everything from their relationships, how they feel about the other characters in the script, to like their zodiac signs. Like I get kind of like really anal like about that as well. And yeah, sometimes they're based on real people, they're based on myself. I add a little things of my personality in there. Sometimes I add, they're composites. They're not just like one person's not equal to like one friend or something. They're like composites of different people in my life, and funny people. I used to live in New York, so people I've seen on the subway, people I've met at old jobs, creepy people I've seen at in random places. I kind of just put them all into like I guess a bowl, or a mixing bowl, and kind of just like that way.
No, and that is real, and that's 100% how I think art should be. It should be an amalgamate of your experiences, not a single aspect. But who am I? I'm just some weird dude, bearded and tattooed. But
It's just great questions. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, as you do, what do you prefer? You are a jack of all trades, as per writer, as per director, as per producer, as per, and a lot of these as per again is because it's independent. I'm sure there are a whole bunch of jobs you wish you didn't have to do for this, but what is the one that truly comes from the heart for you? Because from what I'm hearing, it really does seem like it's the writing aspect of it. But I kind of wanted you to dive deeper into that.
Yeah, I think it's become the writing part of it. Like I said, I always wanted to be an actor, and I think I'm gonna be hopefully be like 90 years old and I can still remember some lines and I'll still try to do some acting. 'Cause I love it so much. It's like
Mhm.
it's just nothing like, portraying a character and digging deep. I love doing that kind of research and diving into the history of someone and like filling in the blanks of what's not in the text. But when I graduated from college, I had a professor who told me because of my type, because of my size, I was only gonna play like thugs and gangsters and prisoners, and that was a huge blow to my ego.
Mhm.
At the time, as like this young kid fresh out of college, I didn't want to move to New York for a while because I was so nervous about it.
Mm.
I finally did, and like long story short, I ended up taking an acting class at this school. And one of my teachers was also like a writing teacher, and he was like, "Jason, you're so funny. Like you have all these like really funny ideas. Do you write?" And like I've always written as a kid. I just never finished anything because I never thought
Mhm.
like I never thought I would be behind the camera. I saw like Will Smith and like Whitney Houston and all those people like in front of the camera. I was like, oh, I can do that. I never thought I could be telling the stories behind the camera. And because this teacher, Victor Verhey, he's an amazing actor and writer. He was like, "You're really funny. You should write something and you should finish something." And because of him, I started writing a web series, which I had never done
Mhm.
before. I also love Issa Rae, who had this really cool web series called Awkward Black Girl. And I kind of wrote like something that was kind of like that in a way, like very like to the camera, the office style. And I gave it to my teacher, and he was like, "Okay, you need to film this." And I was like, "What does
Mhm.
that mean?" Like I don't know how to film something. And I think they always say it takes like a village, right? So it was just like reaching out to people who did know how to do those things. And I guess to answer your question, like I love writing now. I feel like I'm catching up on like 20 something years of not really writing and finishing stuff that I'm actually doing now. So it's kind of hard to pick. I think they're different, but they're also very
Mhm.
similar in a way of the research. I feel like, um, yeah. So I think it's kind of hard to pick. I know I'm going to be doing
Mhm.
both for as long as I can. I will say that.
And yeah, no, and that's awesome. And I also have to say, it is absolutely absurd and ridiculous, that in the entertainment industry, and it's something that we've talked about a long time. There are so many different barriers that are up that and there are so many different stereotypes that they play into for no apparent reason. Someone of your size or my size, looking the way in which we do. Oh, there's no way you can be a romantic lead. To quote Ludacris, bro, I got hoes. How do I not? How am I not a romantic lead? You know what I'm saying? Like
It's true. It's true.
just let's be in real
Terrestrial radio,
life.
easy. Terrestrial radio.
I used the proper words, sir,
Terrestrial radio.
and that didn't get
I love
edited.
you.
That didn't get edited when Ludacris released it as a single,
I
sir.
love you, terrestrial radio. I love you very much. That's all I'm saying.
That's so
Continue, buddy.
true.
Continue.
Yeah, yeah.
So why is there just this amazing disconnect between reality and what we see as the performance in the entertainment field itself?
Yeah, I think that whole idea is changing. I think it's taking a long time. This has a long way to go. But I feel
Hmm.
like, studios are all about making money, right? And what they think sells and what they think there's going to be the biggest profit at the end of the day. And I feel like, kind of a very, I guess, kind of white, thin, beautiful, like traditionally beautiful kind of
Hmm.
uh facade is what they thought sold for so long, right? So there were stories by people of color or by LGBTQ stories or like just different stories that weren't being told and weren't being propped up, especially when they thought like, oh, these movies aren't going to sell like overseas in Europe and China and like all those places. And I feel like that's changing now, and there is this kind of like movement in entertainment industry to tell more stories and to be inclusive and to give people who aren't traditionally what we think of as beautiful the option to be lead roles, right? I think we have a long way to go still, but it's nice that, for me anyway, to like know that my teacher was wrong, because I have not only played a prisoner or a thug. I'm able to play a variety of roles. Some that I've had to write for myself, but also some that I've been called in for to audition for and been cast as. I just shot my first lead role in a feature film, an independent feature film, where I did get to play the romantic lead, which was like, little me, like I never had believed that that would be the romantic lead of a feature film. And
Mhm.
it was hard work, but it was very rewarding at the end of the day. And I'm so thankful for the opportunity that I got to work on that film.
Well, and it's interesting too, because now this is where I kind of bridge that gap, because you actually can look historically, in the film industry in particular. If you do not find your story out there, that no one is telling your story, write down and tell your story, and then make sure you attach yourself to that. Because if you look at Sylvester Stallone, the man might not be able to speak a full sentence, but he wrote the original Rocky.
Yeah,
You know,
that's true.
uh, and it's absolutely amazing. And he fought. So many people offered him a lot of money to take that script off his hands, but he fought to make sure he was going to be the lead in that picture. So if you can continue to put good art out there, you're going to write that piece that is going to, because no one can tell your story better than you, right? In the reality of it, no one can. They can tell
Yeah.
their side of it, but they're never going to hit every single nuance the way you're going to hit it. And then if it is your story, the best person to tell that story, and to portray you in that story, is you. And this is where you're getting the most genuine part of the art. So if you can make that written piece one of the best art pieces you're going to find, and
Yeah.
then you will then have that opportunity to make the rest of the visual aspect of it as perfect. And I love that you had the one professor kind of neg you out a little bit, but you had the other professor build you up and give you the tool now
It's so
to
true.
take on the industry from your point of view. At that point, when you are writing it, when you are directing it, when you are producing it, I said it earlier this week with the podcaster that we had on, you have no god or master. You know what I mean? You are in charge of your vision. And as an artist, that is the one thing we all crave. Because I hate them rules. I don't like being told what to say, when to
That's
say,
true.
how to say it. It's one of the reasons why Prestige has a shock collar for me anytime I get too far off the thing. If you see I
You
start
start
going
quoting
like that,
ludicrous.
yeah, exactly. Um, you know, so
Yeah.
now that you're in that authentic journey.
Yeah, and I on my podcast I got to interview David Zayas, who's been on Dexter and who was on Oz, and he was recently in this play on Broadway called Cost of Living. And he shared some advice and some words that he hoped producers on Broadway, which I think can be shared to Hollywood in general, right? Entertainment business in general, is like, let let marginalized communities telling their stories not put so much pressure on them to like tell the perfect story, right? We deserve to like fail just like everyone else, right? And we deserve to get these stories out, and they may not be a blockbuster, right? But give us a second chance. They're not just
Mhm.
like one and done. So I thought that was a very cool thing that he said, and it was a thing I want to take with me like going forward, is like, I of course want to make the best work I can, but it's not that I only have just one shot. As much as Eminem says there's one shot, there's not just one shot. You should be allowed to take more than one chances, and sometimes you're gonna win and sometimes you're not, but you're always gonna learn from them, hopefully.
No, and that's one of the super keys. We talk about it all the time. When you are jumping in, being an entrepreneur, when you are jumping into, being an artist full time, fail hard, fail gloriously, and fail often. Because the truest of acting and life coaches out there, the stand up philosopher Launchpad McQuack once said, "Any landing you can walk away from is a good landing." And it's very, 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 very true.
Love
I
that.
believe he's going to have a book coming out in 2027. Quack Tales. Uh, but
Oh my God.
It is in those. Yeah, no, I told man, I'm a goofball. It is what it is.
I was believing you for a second. I was like, oh.
I know that's what makes the joke so much better.
Generic question though. What's the name of your podcast and what platforms are they on?
Oh yeah. So my podcast is called Survival Jobs. Me and my
Awesome.
co-host Samantha Titsolo, we interview artists that we admire about their artistic journeys,
Mhm.
like where they started from, working in gig work probably, or babysitting, or working in a restaurant, or as a PA, wherever they started from, and how they transitioned into being a full-time artist. So, there's a lot of fun stories. It's very inspiring. It's been very I guess soul warming for me because we started during the middle of the pandemic, and
Oh wow.
yeah, started as a passion
We
project.
can relate.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Our first show was April 1st, 2020.
Oh wow, wow.
Yeah. So there's a lot of full circles going on right here. But
For sure.
continue, man, continue.
The circle of mics. It's the circle of mics.
Yeah, but we're on Broadway World, and we're on Broadway
Cool.
podcast networks, and you can listen to it anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Podbean. Yeah, it's really fun.
What's been your favorite survival job?
My personal one?
Yeah, your personal one.
Oh,
We don't have those favorite, headache jobs that that will just come back again the next day. It just because we can tolerate. What's been the favorite survival job you can tolerate? That's better way to answer.
That's a really good way to put it. No, I still do this job every now and then. Because I said I didn't want to ever go back to a restaurant. After the pandemic, I was like, no more of that. But I do talent wrangling every once in a while, which is
Okay,
for
cool.
these really cool, like really big gigs. Like I did one recently, and I got to you get to meet some cool people. Like I got to meet Derek Jeter, and it's just really cool to you're still doing something entertainment adjacent, even though you're like kind of on the bottom of the totem pole still, because you're running around and you're doing getting people whatever they need and running around like a crazy person sometimes. But it's still fun to be part of the entertainment industry in some way, and it pays well, so that's fun.
How fun was Mr. Robot? What creative minds did you meet on there? Did you meet Christian Slater? Did you meet any other? Did you
that
meet
was
the guy who played Freddie Mercury?
Yeah, that was before he actually got
Yeah.
that role. Yeah, Rami. He was so cool. That was
Cool,
such a
awesome.
fun day. Yeah, that was like my first kind of big co-star role. And I had like 4 or 5 lines. They cut it down to 1, but I was still very happy because it was with Rami, and he was so kind. I was just a day player there for the day, but he came up to me, introduced himself. He was like, I'm like, I know who you are. Like in my head, I'm like, I know who he is. But it was the fact that he was just so kind and humble to do that, and it was really cool to watch him because I don't believe he's a writer on the show. I think he's just an actor, but him and the director were so they were working kind of in tandem,
So he
talking.
had some control of his character.
Yeah, he had a lot of control.
Okay.
I felt like if I didn't
That's
know who
awesome.
the director was, I would feel like he was the director because he was just so hands-on, and he was not directing people, but he just was he just knew where the cameras were, and he knew where he wanted some shots, and he was talking to the director about it, which is really cool to see an actor kind of in that role of okay, I don't have to just learn my lines and be placed. I can actually be part of the creative process in a way, and I know what's best for my character at the end of the day, so I can share that with the director to have and see that kind of relationship was really cool.
Nice. And one thing that's really cool, what is Jay in the City? Tell me about that broadcast. Tell me about that show.
Oh yeah, well that's my radio show. I do it
Nice.
once a month on WPKN. Shout out to WPKN in Bridgeport, 89.5, and it's the first Monday of the month. And again, it's just me talking to local artists. I talk to artists a lot. I think I'm always just trying to find inspiration and stay inspired. So I talk to like local artists from Bridgeport, New Haven, Fairfield County areas, and just about their journeys as well. Like what's warming their souls, what's going on in their lives, what people in this community should check out that they're doing. And it's kind of like Survivor Jobs, but on like a more local scale, which is really cool.
And
Yeah.
just and it's kind of really different because you have a podcast perspective of you doing things, and then you have like this somewhat semi-controlled perspective of how you like to do things. Do you see more of these art forms, just talking to people, as just a great way of therapy with you? Because you're creative as well too. I mean, do other people, other guests that you bring on, do they inspire you to be a better individual?
Oh my gosh, all the time. Like
Yeah.
I'm always learning from my guests because I feel like, you know, I'm talking about the positives and you guys are so great to like focus on like some really cool things I've done. I'm so thankful for that. But it's not
Absolutely.
always rainbows and butterflies, right?
No, it's
There's
not.
a lot of hard times. There's been times where I was like, what am I doing? I don't know if I can keep doing this. You know, I've been on like 10 auditions and I had didn't get a call back, or there have been times where like I had like 4 callbacks on a thing and I've been so close to something I didn't get it, and like
Right.
how kind of crushing that can be. But I think talking to other artists to be like, hey, like we're kind of all in this together, and like everyone's journey is different. But as long as you kind of like stay grounded, right? And stay humble, stay open, be a kind person, and make those organic connections and keep at it. Your time will come, and I think everyone's idea of success is different, right? Some people want to get to that Oscar stage, and some people just want to wake up every day and create. And I'm kind of finding out that's kind of what like I want to do. Like, yes, I want to get to the Oscars. 2028 was my goal. So I have a couple more years still. But I think at the end of the day, if I can just wake up and be like, hey, today I'm getting to shoot a movie. And then, next month I get to like teach an acting class. And then the next month I get to, work on a Broadway play. Like I just want to wake up every day and be an artist and be paid for my art. That's kind of like the goal. And I think I'm reminded of that when I get to talk to different artists, like who are being fulfilled and who are inspired, and they're inspiring me as well.
Is being an actor the best unemployed experience?
Is the best unemployed experience? I think it has its moments,
Right.
I think it's cool that we get to like, I get to read plays and I get to watch movies, and that's kind of like research,
Mhm.
So I will say that, some days when I'm like watching something, I'm like, oh, kind of wasting time watching this. I'm like, no, like I'm actually learning a lot from Stephen Yoon watching this beef, 8 hours of beef on Netflix. Like, I'm actually getting a master class in acting right here. So it's like I feel a little less guilty about it, but yeah, it's a really good question.
Despite his past of all the crazy things he has done, he is a very talented individual, James Franco. What have you learned from him? Just piggybacking through his mind
Yeah.
and just all of that. Please tell me.
Yeah, I think
On WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven, myself, Prestige, and my partner in crime, part of the Super Kick Party, Mr. EC Bluez is in the building. Go ahead, Jason. My apologies.
oh no, it's great. I think like watching him, so I got to spend some time with him back in like 2015 and 2016, because I was running his acting school, his
Oh,
performing
wow.
school. Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
I was the director of operations.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, it just was he kind of was living that life where,
Mhm.
every day he woke up and he got to do what he wanted to do professionally, like artistically, right? So
Yeah,
like
of course. Yeah.
he was flying in on a weekly basis to teach a master class in acting, right? In between working on an HBO show that he was filming during the week, and he also was writing a musical at the time, and it was just really cool to see like he's living his artistic life, and that kind of was like the first time I was like, wow, that's kind of really cool, and that's kind of like what I want to do. Like I just want to wake up every day and create. I don't want to be working at a restaurant. I don't want to like be working
Mhm.
doing X, Y, and Z. Like I want to be an artist. I am an artist, and I'm
Of
going to
course.
work on that every day. Every day is the goal until I retire. Like I just want to be surrounded by artists. I want to be doing artistic things. And like I love writing. I guess I love acting. I love producing. And I think I can do it all. As long as I, keep working hard at it, and to get to that next level is possible. So that's something I really admired about him and seeing him work. And he was so passionate. There's a lot of things out there, but
Of
when he
course.
was in our class, he was super passionate about
Mhm.
the work and about fine-tuning the writing, and that was really inspiring to see. So I'll definitely say that.
Broadway or television?
Ooh. I think it goes it goes back to what. Oh, geez, that's such a hard question. I guess what Easy was saying, right? I think there's a saying. I hope I don't get it wrong, but it's like you do TV to pay your bills, you do
Right.
movies to get famous, and then you do Broadway. because
to get
it's
better,
get
to sharpen
better.
your sword. Is that the case?
Yeah.
Like there's like fighters, they go back to like that old gym, to get buff and toned and lean for that next big mainstream fight. You feel that's way, you feel Broadway's the same thing for actors. Okay, let me
Yeah,
go.
I think
Okay, cool.
that's how theater. I mean, for me anyway, it's like there's not. I mean, when you're on set and you're filming scenes on a film set, it's kind of
Mhm.
like stop and go, right? So like,
Right.
Mhm.
and I feel like, and I haven't done much as a lead yet. I've only been a
Yeah.
couple of shorts, and
Mhm.
my first feature was last December. But it's very stop and go, and I feel like the
Mhm.
performance is kind of made through what angles and through the directors and the director and the editor working together for the final cut. That's kind of
Mhm.
like where your
Mhm.
performance is made, because you can do things multiple different ways because it's like not live. But in theater, I feel like you're there and it's like in the moment to moment, in that room and on that stage, wherever it is. And it's like, yeah, you can have all the training, you have all the rehearsals, but then when it's that moment where you're there for that play or that music or whatever it is, it's
Yeah.
like that's what it is. There's no like editing that.
You can't fake it.
You can't
You
fake
can't
it.
fake it at all. And
Yeah.
I imagine that genuine feeling just with the audience is probably so overwhelming and so exciting. It's probably undescribable. Am I right?
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
it's there's nothing like it. There's nothing from the adrenaline of being on stage. And sometimes, I've done some plays where it's just so intimate and you forget there's an audience there because you're
Yeah.
just so in the moment. And those are like the best times where it's just like me and my scene partners. And like I forget, like I may hear like a little bit of laughter in the distance, but I forget that, like, because I was always told
Mhm.
90% of your thoughts when you're acting should be your character's thoughts. You should be in the
Right.
world of your character. And then 10% is like, okay, make sure you like, you don't walk off the stage. Like you make sure you find your light and like you make sure you're like, so and I think, getting when you actually get to that point,
Right.
it's just such a beautiful and such a beautiful and inspiring, and like you're like, damn, ooh, darn, I did it, darn, I did it. Like you feel so good about it.
I was watching some interviews with Denzel Washington, Michael Keaton just like did some kind of actually just prep for this interview.
The
And
goats.
they said your first jobs, like the jobs you take on, just like to build yourself and to build your character, really say a lot about you just as a professional. Do you agree?
Um,
Can't just take like anything or just like you're just trying to get there to make a name for yourself, just grab anything you can.
yeah, I mean, I thought you had to just take anything.
Mhm.
When I
Right,
first moved to New York, I was like, oh, you got to just work. But I
right.
remember, I had an experience where I got cast in this off Broadway play,
Mhm.
and it was a disaster. Like the director, and like I don't like to talk junk about anybody, and I don't
Right,
remember
of
his name or
course.
anything.
Yeah, yeah.
But the director was just like, I've never worked with a person like that who just wasn't. A director is supposed to be the top. He's at the top, or she's at the top, right? They're like
Mhm.
the person who's supposed to cultivate the
Mhm.
rehearsal room. They're supposed to be warm. They're supposed to be a leader, and this person like was not that.
Right.
And the rehearsal schedule was all over the place, and I felt like we weren't being utilized, and it was just a very chaotic experience. And I was like, this is like New York City theater. Like this is weird. And I was very young. I just moved to New York, and I
Mhm.
remember talking to one of my professors, and I was like, "Is this how it's supposed to be?" And he was like, "No, it's not. That's not how it's supposed to be." And I was thinking about quitting, but I never quit anything before. I'm like, I came
Yeah.
from the school of like, you don't quit. You do the show must go on. You make the best of it. And he was like, if it's not fulfilling you, you can definitely quit. If it's not where you want to be, if you don't want to align yourself with that, you can definitely quit. So I think, yes, you can definitely, you don't have to take every role that's offered to you. You don't have to take every part. You have to like know what you want to say as an actor, what you want to say as a person. And if you don't feel comfortable doing something, like don't do it. It's not worth it. It's not worth your integrity or your morality if it's something that you don't believe in.
Mhm.
No, that's super key, and I love that you guys actually brought that up because
Yeah.
it is that aspect, and there is a flip side of that coin as well, because
Yeah.
you did have that experience and you learned a ton of what not to be as a director. One of the things that I definitely picked up in the army was I learned some things from great sergeants and some great cadre, but I learned more from the bad ones. I learned what not to do, And when you can learn what not to do, that becomes super valuable. You know who you don't want to be. You have that example in front of you. And you can definitely walk away. If it does not, if it's not super feeding your house, if the paycheck does not, where you're like, I'm totally gonna walk away from this, but my next 6 months of rent is already paid from this job. Maybe you finish out that job.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you're like, yeah, I know how much my integrity costs, and right now it costs 6 months of not having to pay bills. Yeah, so it's a business thing. I'm sorry, At the end of the day, look, man. Hunter S. Thompson has stated this industry is full of liars, cheats, creeps, thieves, pimps, prostitutes, and johns, and there's a downside. So
Yeah, yeah.
Tell me about the web series Shaw.
Oh
What's
gosh.
that about? It won some awards. Please give us some
Yeah,
details.
so that was the first thing I ever wrote, which was
Okay.
yeah, it was I wrote and finished, and I was like, I didn't know it was gonna be a web series. I kind of was just like, I remember I had worked on this show called White
Mhm.
Collar as a production assistant, as office production assistant, and it was like 8 months of draining work. And I remember it was like done in October. I went down to Chelsea Pier. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was so hard, like just being a PA and like running around on a professional set. And I was just like, I need to be creative. So I just went down to Chelsea Pier and I just started writing. And I was like, listening to my teacher's voice in my head was just like, write something, finish something, finish something. And that was eventually became Shaw. And it's about this misunderstood Black man who ends up in anger management and therapy, which I thought was really cool because I feel like even though it's changing, like therapy in Black households just was still kind of taboo for a long time.
Mhm.
And I thought it was cool to kind of shine a light on that. And it was a comedy, kind of like the office style. So there's like the looking to the camera, like, gym style. And it was just a lot of fun to make. Everyone worked for free. I owe so many people favors because it was just like people believed in the script and believed in me and they were like, let's do it. So we like shot on the weekends, for like 4 months, like every weekend for 4 months to film 6 episodes. And
Nice.
it was so much fun. And I didn't know what to do with it after. I was like, okay, I wrote this, and then I produced it. I got one of my good friends, Carrie, to direct the first couple episodes, and I directed the last one. So I was able to like watch him and learn from it, like learn from
Mhm.
him directing film. That was such a cool experience. And then I was like, I guess I can submit to like film festivals. I had really no idea like what that process was like. And then I
Mhm.
learned that, and we got into a couple, and I won some awards, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm an award-winning filmmaker now. Like I had no idea what that would be like. And so it's
Right.
kind of like a journey. It's been like kind of been like, hey, if you want to do something, like don't just sit around waiting, like do it and learn on the way. Ask people questions, ask people for favors, return favors to people when they do one for you. But like don't be scared to do something just because you don't know how. Like we have endless amount of resources. Like YouTube is a godsend, and you can
Yeah.
always meet people and you make those organic connections like we were talking about before. And if people believe in you and believe in your work, they'll help you out. And that's kind of Shaw was. It was definitely a labor of love, and I learned so much from doing that project.
Mentioned festivals. You have a festival coming up. Please tell the people in our audience.
Oh yeah,
Let the world
yes.
know.
Yeah. So I thought by the
Yep.
time I was in my
I
in
got a
my
little confused. One says yes, one says no.
oh
My face is in the middle. The Zoom is a little bit messed up. But please, I just got a little lost. I'm sorry, but
it's all good. No, I thought by the time I was in my 30s, I would be wealthy and famous like Oprah, but I'm not. I have a long way to go. But during the pandemic and seeing all the reckoning of like the Black Lives Matter movement that was happening in 2020 and this like fight for equality, I was like, what more can I do? Like I was marching in the streets and I was donating money from the unemployment I was getting, and I was just like, what more? Like I felt like there's more. So I was like, I always had this idea of doing a film festival because I had such great experiences when I was submitting Shaw. And I was like, Bridgeport could really use something like this. It's a very, as we all know, Bridgeport is like has a very negative reputation in the media. It's a very underserved community that can benefit from more art and more culture, more humanities. So I was like, I think that can kind of be my way of like doing more is like starting from my community. And I'm so proud to be from Bridgeport, and I love being from Bridgeport. Everyone talks about diversity and inclusion, and that's all I've ever known coming from Bridgeport.
Right.
So I thought that was a good way of like me kind of bringing something of value here. So during the pandemic, I met up with a local nonprofit called Groundwork Bridgeport, who were super supportive of me and of the idea, and they helped me put on this massive 3-day festival at the Klein Memorial, where we screened over 70 films in person and virtually from 15 different countries. And we
Mm.
had workshops and we had panels and we had industry meetups. And I remember I met up with Trish Clark, who's like the president of the Nutmeg Institute, and she was like, "This is the most diverse film festival I've ever been to, like here in this area." And that was such a huge compliment to me because I want that to be represented here in Bridgeport. I want that here. So we're going to our third year this September 8th through the 10th. Submissions close next Tuesday, June 20th. So if you have a film or you have a web series or a short screenplay, you can submit that by June 20th. If not,
Beautiful.
we'll open it again for next year. But come September 8th through the 10th this fall at the Klein Memorial here in Bridgeport.
We only have so much little time for this broadcast.
I know.
I mean, you gave enough gems throughout this whole entire
So
show.
many.
Oh,
So
thank
many.
you.
Just drop
Y'all
it.
asked great questions. This was
We
fantastic.
try our best. Thank you so
It's
much.
all it's prestige. It's all prestige.
It's all easy with his amazing personality. But any inspiring things you have left to tell people who are at that closest edge, because they always say when you're about to give up, that's the moment, things turn around for you. So anything
Yeah.
you got left to tell anybody, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just if this is something that you like really want to do, if acting or if producing or writing is something that like you can't imagine yourself doing anything else, like I say, what do you have to lose? Like, I mean, if you have like a family of 5 or something you have to support, yes, that's like a very big thing, but you can still, even with those obstacles, you can still try to make it work. And like I said, you have a community of people. If you don't have that community built in, go to local film festivals and meet people, make those organic connections. You never know who you can meet by just going to a festival or going to a special screening. Like I heard Spike Lee was in New Haven recently. Like go
Yeah.
to those kind of events and just make these connections, right? And just talk to people. Because people want to support and uplift you. Like if you're a good person and they see that you're a good person and see you're working hard, people will give their time. Like I say, ask people for, hey, can I buy you a coffee? Can we chat? Someone who's like in a position where you want to be one day. Can I talk to you on Zoom for half an hour? Just don't let people like tell you no, you can't do it. Don't let outside obstacles stop you if it's something that you really want to do. I know it's easier said than done, but there's always support and there's always community out there. So that's kind of like my long-winded way. And maybe I'm saying that from a place of privilege. So
No, this is what we want. And last but not least, the last question we have, it's really quick. Please give any social media, any ways of contact you before you go.
oh yeah, it's just my name on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, Jason A. Coombs, COOMBS.
There. Jason, thank you so much for being a part of the show. We do appreciate you. Myself, Prestige, and my partner in crime, Long Island raved, Elm City made, EZ Bluez is in the building. Jason, we appreciate you being with us on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Thank you guys.
Wondering what to write about, trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist, am I worth anything or just a scout? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know.
Spending time all alone, sending my songs to the phone, dreaming of a better home while focused on trying to hone this craft, witchcraft. I hope the Bluez let this
I
last.
don't know if the earth is painted